Satan's top strategy is to divide the church. You know, Solomon writes in Proverbs chapter 6. Now, I want you to listen to this. In verse 16, there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a man or a person who stirs up dissension among brothers. You know, when Solomon says there are 6 things, yea, 7. When he mentions 7, he doesn't mean that I'm writing this and I forgot there's another one. But rather, he's trying to underscore the 7th one. So even though he's going to list some awful sins that people do, he really wants the reader to focus on the last one. Because at first glance, the last one doesn't seem so harmful. Not compared to hands that shed innocent blood, or a heart that devises wicked schemes, or feet that are rushing into evil. I mean, those things we could readily see that's awful sinful. So by underscoring the 7th, he's saying it may not seem so bad, but it is worse than you think. And that is, God hates a person who stirs up dissension, sows dissension, discord among the brothers and sisters. You know, unity is such a powerful force in God's church. Jesus' final prayer in the upper room, he prays, and you know what he spends his time praying? Read it in John 16 and 17. The final part of the prayer, let me just read it to you. John 17, verse 20. My prayer is not for them alone. I also pray for those who will believe in me through their message. That means he's praying for you. And what is he praying? That all of them may be one. One. Father, just as you are in me and I am in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I've given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are in one. I and them, you and me, may they be brought to complete unity, to let the world know that you sent me and have loved them even as you loved me. What is Jesus' final prayer? He's praying for unity, because Jesus knows the power of unity, and the benefit of unity is quite clear. Is unity will cause the world to believe in Jesus. Isn't that what you want? Isn't that why you're a part of your church? Is you want people to come and believe in Jesus and trust him? But if you're one of those that are sowing discord in the church, you're actually hindering the ability of the church to win the world. So Jesus is saying unity is primary. This is why, above all things, we have to guard unity in the church. A pastor has no choice but to guard this. Listen to what Paul wrote to Bishop Titus, who was the bishop of the island of Crete. He says in Titus 3, verse 10, warn a divisive person once, then warn him a second time. After that, have nothing to do with him. You may be sure that such a man is warped and sinful. He is self-condemned. So he's telling the bishop, he said, listen, I know on Crete that people have a tradition of fighting and arguing. They argue about politics. They argue about government. They argue at the workplace. He says, but you cannot allow that worldly mentality to be in the church, where a person is divisive. And so what does he tell the bishop? He says, you got to warn that divisive person once. And then if they still keep on sowing discord, warn them a second time, but let them know this will be their last warning. And then if they continue sowing discord in the church, he says, have nothing to do with them, which meant he had to go through the extreme action of removing that person from the church. I know that is an extreme action, and no pastor ever wants to do that. And your pastor doesn't want to do that with you or with other members. But a pastor has to guard the unity of the church. This is how important unity is. Solomon warns against it. He says God hates the person who's sowing discord. Jesus is praying for unity so that the world would come to believe in him. And Paul is telling the bishop, you got to make sure that if any of your members are sowing discord, they're being divisive, you got to remove them, because unity must be preserved. I'm trying to ask you, friend, don't sow discord in your church. Don't sow it. And pastor, I give a message, is you got to guard unity. And that means you cannot allow people in the church that are sowing discord in your church to continue to stay in it. You've got to warn them. Otherwise, it's better to remove them, because only when you remove them will that discord and disharmony stop. So I want you to see how the scriptures stress so much about unity and how important it is for you to practice unity in your church.